Hello everyone. So in this session, we are going to see the demo Azure Kubernetes service. So even the last session, we have seen the overview and everything, right? And finally, we don't have a time to see the demo, and so that is what we are going to see in this session. Okay. So for example, we'll go to Azure DevOps. Okay. So the last time, right, we have cloned the AKS demo, this project from the Azure DevOps demo project generator. Okay. So for example, you can clone this project from the Azure DevOps demo project generator. So you can go here and you have to sign in with your Microsoft account. So you can provide some random name on something, but so here these are the things you already know, like you have to provide the project name, organization name. So I will just let you know which template you have to choose. Okay. So here, right, here you have to select the DevOps lab, and under this you will be having the Azure Kubernetes service. Okay. So in this one, right, so we will be deploying, yeah, this template will have maybe the like a .NET Core project, and after that so the build and release pipeline to deploy into the AKS cluster. So mostly what are the Azure services it is using, like Azure Kubernetes service as the Kubernetes platform, and Azure Container Registry to store the images, and after that they have some SQL Server database which the web application will interact with the Kubernetes cluster basically. Okay. But so you have to note that there is no ARM template or the Terraform with this project. So because when you are running the build or deployment, right, it won't create any of the infrastructure related resources, because this one not having any kind of infrastructure automation script. Okay. So that one we have to create by manually, or we can run from the command line. Okay. uh, so maybe so here, right, so in this link you can find what are all the so I will share with you the link so that you can go to that, and then what are all the resources, and here you can see the list of comments. So you have to create for the particular demo, like I have said, right, so like AKS cluster we have to create, and the container registry we have to create, and finally the SQL server we have to create, and we need to update the same the prop, maybe the variables and all, right. In the variable sections you have to update that one. So whatever uh, the variables you are using, right, so that one you have to update here. Once the resource is created, the what is the ACR name and SQL server password and the username, so everything that you have to choose here. Okay. And so before that I will let you know uh, before that I will let you know the repository structure. Like here we have the source folder, so inside that there is some web application, and in outside of that, so here you have the Azure pipelines and Docker Compose, and here you have the Kubernetes YAML file. Okay. So from based on this file only, all the deployment everything it will be happening, like so how many replica you need, like here they are saying like a number of replica is one, and then the what is the container and the image. So all the details it will be coming from here. Okay. So first what I will do is like I will log into Azure portal. Okay, because before that we need to create the resource, right, the AKS, ACR, and then SQL server we have to be created. So Mebrod, you are clear, right? So because in the last session so we are about to do this demo, but due to time constraint we didn't take that one. So did you try that in the weekend, Mebrod? So if you have a chance something.
No, Salvan, I didn't
Okay.
try this, but I was trying to install the Yeah.
Okay.
Now the Dockers, now it's working. My Docker is working, so maybe I will start working.
Yeah. Congrats, Mebrat. So you finally the Docker installation is completed, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the issue, Mebrat, you are
So
facing? So why?
the issue was Linux.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, Mebrat. Yeah.
It prompts me to update the Linux, and
Hmm.
then it succeeds. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Mebrat. Yeah, super. So the next, so in this one, right, for this demo, so we have to create the AKS cluster and ACR, the container registry and SQL server. So you know, right, so why we are creating all the three resources, because in the pipeline, when I'm going to the release pipeline or something. So in the release pipeline, right? So they are executing some SQL command. Like so, they are going to run some SQL commands. So that we need the SQL server and also the AKS cluster, because there only we are going to deploy the application. And after that ACR. So ACR for for storing the images. So you understood me, Brad? So why we are creating the three resources now, like AKS, ACR, and ACR and SQL Server.
Right.
Yeah. So I will just we are just going to so run the commands one by one, and so basically, right, so I don't want to log into AZ CLI in my command line. So better, so that's why I'm using from the cloud shell itself. Okay, so here also, right, we have all the utilities, so that here itself we can run the command, so that all the resources will be created here also. Okay, so first one is they are running some so they are trying to get the Kubernetes version. So what is the latest version available in the Kubernetes currently? Okay. Why? Okay. So here the region, there is some problem. Okay. Maybe here the region, right? I think in this placeholder we have to update something. Like so I would say like East US. Okay, so now maybe I will try to print using echo version. I think dollar symbol we have to provide. Yeah, so currently, right, the latest version is 1.22.2. So this is the currently the latest version available in the AKS cluster. Okay, so and then now the next one is like we are going to create uh, so we are going to create the resource group. So the resource group, you know, that is the logical container for keeping all the Azure resources. Okay.
And also, if we have, okay, Sylvan, if we have a container already for us, I mean, like not for DevOps, but like in our Azure environment, we can reuse that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the last time, right, we have created the AKS cluster. Okay, but if I'm keep on running for the weekend, right, it will be charging for more than some $50 or something. Okay, because even the last 2 days, right, so that I have deleted the AKS cluster. So that's why we are creating from a new. We are creating a new cluster. If you have the cluster, yeah, you can use that, because in
Okay.
the pipeline, right, you will be having some uh, uh, so that so that somewhere you have to choose the what is the cluster name. Okay, so that one in that place you have to update your cluster name, that's it. Okay, because I don't have any, so that's why I'm using this command to create the group and AKS and all. So you are
Yeah. Yes.
yeah, sure, my friend. So currently, right, so we have created the resource group. So now we are creating the uh, AKS cluster. So here also, right, the resource group I am selecting here, like AKS hands-on lab, because this is the resource group created here. Okay, so that within that resource group, we are creating the AKS cluster. So what is the problem again? Okay, unique, no. Okay, so I think here, right? So in this placeholder, they are expecting us to so provide some cluster name. So we will provide some name here. So I will provide some random number like AKS 01234. So this is basically our cluster name. So in your pipeline, right, it will they will ask so the cluster names to be updated. So in that place, I will provide this cluster name. But if you have a existing one, so you can provide yours. Okay, so the next step would be like once that AKS is created, we need to create the ACR. So this is where we are going to store the images, and also this is somewhat equivalent to the Docker Hub. So the Docker Hub also, right, they will be providing the capabilities to store the images, and both of them they will support both public and private repository. So the public means anyone in the internet they can push and pull the images, but for the private repository, right, so you can restrict so whom you need to provide the access. So the private repository mostly it will be mean for within your organization, right? So that within your organization or within your team you can provide the access. So that is what the public and private repository. And so once that AKS is created, right, we will see the this one. Okay, because even in the portal also, right? So when for creation it will take 1 or 2 minutes. So we will wait till it's created.
So, Selvan, do we have this DevOps lab?
The DevOps lab. Okay, so I don't think you have a. Maybe you can note this URL. Okay, so it may be helpful for you to refer. And also, yeah, maybe in the skill pipe, right? So this is the curriculum the Daniel is shared with you, right? Okay, so here, so under the Kubernetes thing, right? So there is something lab like deploying a multi-container application to Kubernetes service. So this is the lab. Okay,
So we are right
yeah,
now.
yeah. So that's why we are doing now, and also, right? So you will be having some idea about how the SQL deployment is doing. So here there is something like DAC pack task, right? But because you mostly need the how you are mostly into the DB automation, right? Even you don't want to maybe much aware of the Kubernetes, but your main objective is like how the SQL and all are deployed there, right? Maybe you can just take some reference. I mean, but like here, right? The DAC pack task. So we can even I am also not aware like DAC pack task. Azure deploy SQL DB using run using SQL command only in the Windows.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, maybe this task, right? It is helping us to deploy the SQL command. Okay, but I
Yeah.
think the only the limitation like it will be working only in the Windows platform, so not in the Linux. And also, right, we will verify. So what is the expectation here? Okay, so here they are saying like under the build deploy MHC. Okay, the file path they are providing. Okay, this is the Kubernetes one, right? Okay, So here we are providing, and finally we are staging all the things related to the dot d DAC pack. Okay, so I will see what are all the okay, here we don't have any file called DAC pack, and I think here, right, infrastructure, properties, repositories, and here also we don't have any shared assets. Yeah, I think here they have some file with extension DAC pack, right? So we can see. Hmm. So Mebra, do you know anything related to dot DAC pack extension? Because I think this is maybe related to the database DAC pack.
No, Selva.
Okay, I think even we are not.
DevOps is really new for me.
Yeah, in Windows, right click the dialog file. You want to click unpack. Uh, Specify the folder you want to. Okay, I think they're just asking us to unpack, but I think here we don't have any unpack option. Data tier application in the. So, Mebrad, so you want to, so all your the database, the migration or the script automation, right? You are going to do for the SQL Server or the Oracle database.
SQL Server, Selva.
Oh, okay. So in this scenario, Mebrad, so you can try to explore the DAC pack and also the Redgate, that is the popular tool. But I think the from the Microsoft side, right? I think seems they are providing the DAC pack, so that also it may be working.
Okay.
Okay, I
Yeah, I
think
think I'll follow
yeah,
this. Let's see.
yeah. So here, so let's comes to this one. So here, right, the AKS is created, and so the next one is like we have to create the container registry. So here also we need to provide the location. So Azure location. So even all the place, right, I have provided like East US, and here like AC or name we have to provide.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. ACR name. I think, right. I think here we need to open some uh, .io or something like. Okay, maybe yeah, maybe we will just provide like ACR 123 4321. Okay, I think it is started to create it. So the next one is like authenticate with Azure Container Registry from Azure Kubernetes. Okay, so for example, right, in this step, so for example, from the Kubernetes, So it will have the YAML file, and inside the YAML file we will have all the details like the images, containers, everything. Okay, so that Kubernetes needs to access the ACR and it needs to pull the images, right? So that is why we have to attach the AKS with the ACR, so that AKS will have a full permission to pull the images. Okay, so that is why we are doing this step. We are just attaching the ACR with AKS, so that whenever the image, maybe when during the deployment, right, it will pull the image from the ACR and it will deploy in the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so I will copy this one. So this one also completed. Yeah. So what is the error here? Resource group and okay, I think resource group not supplied, I guess. Mm, okay, maybe resource group we can. I will copy the resource group and also I think we are not having all the values in the variable. So and then we need to update the cluster name also, right? So this is the ACR. So our ACR name is this ACT something. So we will update here also. And then here the AKS, the AKS name also we need to update there. Maybe better I will copy from here. So this is our AKS name, right? So basically, right, so earlier it is actually referring the values from the variable, but from the above script, right, so we are not storing the like the ACR name, AKS cluster name, everything in the variable. So that's why I'm just directly replacing the variable with the actual value. So maybe we may want to update the cluster name and these names and all in the pipeline, right? So that's why I'm just keeping it in the notepad. So the next one is the creating the SQL server name, SQL server first, and after that we are creating the database. So Mebrat, so till this step you are clear, right? So we have created the resource group, AKS cluster, ACR, and after that we are attaching the ACR with AKS so that AKS can pull the images from the ACR during the deployment. So otherwise, right? So AKS won't have the permission to pull the images, so that the deployment will fail.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so this is not so mostly right, like AKS and ACR is mandatory, but in the application, right, so they are using the SQL server database. The sample application, they are using the SQL server database, so that's why we are creating it. But maybe in your case, maybe they may use the database, or even they don't have also, or otherwise they can use the some other Oracle, or the maybe the Cosmos DB or DynamoDB, some other database also they can use it. Okay, for our demo application they are using the SQL server, so that's why I'm creating here. So here also the unique server name, maybe SQL 4321, and then here the region also East US. Okay, and then the this one also I will copy, because we may want to update the username and password, right? So in the pipeline, so Mebrat, how many years of experience you uh, have in the DB development something, Mebrat?
Daily development, no, but I mean, database administrator only.
Oh, okay, okay. So you are in the administration.
Yes, in the administration.
Okay,
And now you know that that's why these companies they are looking for.
okay,
Always, when there is new tool, then you have to
okay,
participate. For prod, no one, no dev developers work on prod in our environment, so we
oh,
need to, yeah, we
okay.
need to know this dev app
Yeah, yeah.
implementation.
Mm,
That's why.
okay, Mebrat. So here, right, the SQL server also created. So next we'll create the SQL database. So unique SQL server name. So that name we have to provide. This is the fully qualified name. So and also my brand. So once we have installed the SQL server, right? So inside that we are creating the database here. Okay, so here the name they are providing like MHCDB. So mostly right under this one SQL server, we can create the n number of the database. So that is based on the configuration and the requirement we have. It's always like it's not like one SQL server we have to create only one database only, it's not like that. So under the SQL server we can have a multiple databases also. So similar like, so here this is the SQL server, and currently we are creating the MHC database.
Okay.
Yeah. So and I think after running this one, so I think that's all about the resource creation. And so after that we have to update the details in the pipeline only. Okay, yeah, so this one also created. So maybe before that, my brother, so we want to do some configuration. So let's see whether all the resources are created as part of so whatever we have created, right? So this is our resource group, and under that we have the ACR and the Kubernetes cluster, and then the SQL server also. So we have all the three resources created. And so currently, Mebrad, so maybe in all the company, right, so they won't expose the SQL server directly to the internet. Okay, so for example, within the network only the SQL server needs to be accessed. So for example, the Kubernetes, maybe the AKS cluster, right, it needs to have access to the SQL server. But mostly, so we won't be exposing the database in the outside of the internet. Okay, so that is why we have to set some kind of firewall settings here. um, Okay, so here, right, allow Azure services and resources to access this server. Okay, which means like maybe the AKS cluster, right? So from the AKS cluster, if there is any call comes, means whether we want to allow the DB connection or it's not. Okay, or even it could be something like the Azure App Service or wherever. So Azure services means it is the general term. The services can be anything like AKS cluster, app service, or function app, or maybe even the whatever the VM also. Okay, wherever the connection is coming from the Azure, so then we can let the SQL server to allow the connection. Okay, so that is why we are providing yes. And then, right, so this is my client IP. Okay, so by default so it has to be disabled. But for me, right, if the connection is coming from this public IP, then the SQL server will allow it because this is my IP. Okay, the client IP address. uh,
Okay. If
so
you disable it, then we need to provide private IP and where.
No. So for example, right, even if I'm connected to the VPN, so that I will be inside the virtual network, so that I can access the database. But in my scenario, right, we don't have any uh, so we don't have any VPN setup and all. Okay, but if I still want to maybe access the data server, what we have to do is like we have to copy this IP and then click on plus add client IP, so that this one is added. Okay, so whenever the call is going from this public IP, the SQL server it will allow. So for example, I can install the SQL server management studio, and then I can log into the SQL server. So still I can see whatever the tables, rows, and data, everything I can see it. Okay, but if you are trying to access from the same database from your end, right, it won't access. So if you want to have the access, what you will do is like you have to provide the IP to me, and then I will whitelist here, so that so
Oh,
after the whitelisting you can able to access it.
good.
Okay, so I will save the changes now. But maybe whatever this one, maybe in the security, right, so there are many layers, Membrad. Okay, maybe whatever I am saying, right, it's not a good practice. Okay, but this is the best thing we can do for our scenario. Okay, because we don't have any virtual network or VPN setup and all now, right? So that is why I'm just whitelisting my IP address. Okay, but in your application scenario, in your project or the company scenario, right, so even you should not allow them to add your public IP also. Okay, so at the time, so they will be choosing the virtual network. So whenever you are connected to the VPN, so that it will allow you to connect. So otherwise, right, so mostly, right, so they will check this box, so that even we cannot access it from the public network, because even now I am trying to connect from the public network. Okay, so for example, if I am selecting this checkbox, right, even the client IP, this one also disabled, so that even I cannot access from my local machine also. So you got it right. So
Is there
yeah.
any option for how about TLS? Like if you want to disable TLS 1.0, 1.1, and only listen to 1.2,
Yeah,
is there
so
any option?
yeah, here also, right, I think default they will have something. Minimal TLS property. Okay. Login items for client using TLS less than the minimal. Okay. So for example, right? So there are so the TLS means like the transport layer security. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe the currently the latest would be like 1.3, but the currently from the SQL server, right? They are supporting till 1.2. Okay. But if any of the client is connecting using the 1.0, so they have, so the SQL server has to ignore the connection. Okay, so here you are setting up some kind of the minimum TLS version. If you're selecting the 1.1, right, if the connection is coming from the 1.2 or 1.3, so it will allow it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is what here. Okay, so maybe currently I maybe here I'm just leaving the deny public network access because we are not doing anything. So you currently you understood, right, Mebrat, like why we are choosing the add client IP, and what is the use of the deny client deny public network access, right? Because this is my IP and I am whitelisted here so that I can access to the SQL server even outside of the virtual network. Okay. So my brother, you are good with this one, right? So the
Yes.
firewall settings for this one. Yeah. So the next one, right? So we have to update the pipeline. So first we'll update the build pipeline. So here we have to choose the Azure subscription, and then the container register, it is automatically coming, right? So, and then here also the Azure subscription, and then container registry. Yeah, and then push service also. I'm just selecting the this one, and then container registry also. Yeah, so rest we can leave as it is, and the log service. So here also, okay. So I will just save and queue. So okay, my brother. So here, right, this is the build pipeline. So what it will do is like at the end of the successful build, it will create the image, and then it will push the image to the ACR. So there also we can see it, and also I think here also it will publish the artifact like the SQL, the dot DAC pack, the particular file, right? So that also it will stage in the staging directory, so we can use it for the during the deployment. Okay, so I will go to ACR. We'll see whether it has pushed the image or not. So container registry, and so here we have the repository, right? The repository means
Mhm.
we will be having many repositories, and under the repository we will have the many version. Okay, I think currently still it's not created. I think it's still running, right? Yeah. So I think once the push services is completed, then we can see it there.
Okay.
So Mebrat, so you can just to try to maybe the cloning the creating the demo project, and then the creating the resource, right?
Yes, I
Yeah,
will do that. Yeah.
yeah, you will
Yes.
have some better idea, my friend. So there only you know what
Right.
where you
Yes.
are struggling. Yeah, yeah, otherwise, right? So when you are going
Mm.
through the steps, it is very easy only, right? So there is nothing difficult.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So here, my brother, that this is the repository name. Okay, so this is our so I think it's yeah, so this is the container registry. So okay, and then my health dot web, so this is our repository name. Okay, and inside that maybe the latest tag will be created, so we will be having the image version called the latest. Okay, so currently, right,
Mm-hmm.
the push is completed, so you can go
Yeah.
and then refresh the thing. Yeah, so here you can see the
Yeah.
repository, and under that you will be having the these many the tag actually. Okay, 57 and also latest. Okay, I think the 57 is the latest tag. So for
Old.
example, right, maybe what I will do is like I will rerun the job again. So I will rerun the job again, so which means like it will create the new one more version. So so it will create like 58 or something. Okay, so currently it is 55 right here, 57, right? It will be creating something like 58 or something. Okay, so now we are good with the image creation part, the build pipeline. Okay, and the next one is like, so you are good with this one, right, Mebra? So at the end of maybe here, right, for each task, we are selecting the Microsoft the Azure subscription, and then the container registry, and after that I have just to trigger the job, and at the end of the successful one, so it is created the image here. Okay. Yeah, because it will take some time, my brother. So I think, so what I will try to show here, it is like it will be creating a one more version here. So for example, this is the last instance, right? This image is created. So when the for the particular current build instance, right, it will create the new one more build also. Okay, one
So it
more image
will
version
show
also.
latest 58 or something, not like
Yeah,
skipping both.
so always the latest will be the recent one. Okay, and apart from that it
Mm-hmm.
will keep other images also. Here it is 57, right? The next
Oh,
one
okay,
would be
okay.
like 58 or something. Okay,
Then
but
it will show both.
yeah, yeah, it will show both 57 and 58,
Oh,
but the latest
okay.
would be the recent one. So it won't have
Right.
the multiple latest something, so we will be having only the one latest. So for example, right, many time you will be pulling the images without version, without any tag, which means like by default it will look up the latest tag only if you are not specifying any image version. So that is why the latest is present here. So you got it, right? Remember, so for example, right, when you are trying to pull the image, you didn't specify the which version you want to pull, like 57 or 58. Okay, at the time, what
Mhm.
your
Then it will
command will it
display
will
both.
try. So basically, by default, it will try if there is no explicit tag you specified. It will look up on the latest build actually.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So for example, the next one, right? So we will go to uh, the release one. Okay, so I will go to release. So earlier we have gone to pipelines, so now I'm going to release. Okay, so I will edit this release. So here we have these many tasks. Okay, like this is the SQL, the DB execution task, right? I think it is doing something. The DAC pack. Maybe it is in this task, right? I think it mostly do like the unpack the task, and after that it will execute something. So that so I we need to provide, right, where our SQL server is there. So that is why. like the SQL Server database name, and then SQL Server and SQL password. So everything we have to mention in the variable session. Okay, so these and yeah, that's it. Okay, so only the variable values we have to provide it here, like ACR and okay. So for example, I will go to this one. So the SQL Server name means we have to provide this one, the Windows dot net. The AKS means this is dot .io. Okay, so here dot .io password dot net. Okay, so I will go to the SQL Server. Okay, so this is the SQL Server. So I will copy the server name. Okay, and then I will be updating in the, yeah, so here, right, the SQL Server.
Mhm.
Okay, we have, but
About SQL user, you don't have to change anything except
no, no,
SQL
no, we
Server.
have to add that
Okay.
one also, my brother. I think
Oh, okay.
currently they are naming something like maybe I think the SQL password alone we can keep it as the secret. I think the rest of things we don't need. Okay, so I think currently, right, I have updated the SQL Server name. Okay, and the database name we know MHCDB something, right? Okay, I think SQL. So here the database name is like MHCDB. Okay, and then the username and password. So SQL admin is the username. I think there is some extra space, so I will remove that one. And then the password. So this is the password we created, right? So
Right.
I will update the password here. And then the ACR name. So the ACR means, so I will go to container registry. So this is the ACR, right? So this is the,
SQL.
yeah. So this is the
Mhm.
container registry endpoint. So here I'm updating this one. Okay. So I will, where we can save it. Okay. I think here this task is fine, and we will be going to the dev, and yeah, this is fine. And after that, here, yeah, this one is fine. And here, right, the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so I think maybe do we want to, I think it will automatically fetch AKS. Okay, okay, here the Azure subscription, and then the resource group, and then the Kubernetes cluster. I think the namespace, I think by default it will use yeah, I think here it's optional only, otherwise it will deploy in the default namespace. Yeah, I think rest everything fine, but the deployment, right, it will take based on the mhc aks.yaml file. Okay, and then the next one, so here also we have to choose the subscription and resource group and Kubernetes cluster. It is asking us to, okay, and then the namespace, I think this is the default one. Okay, so I will save. We can just queue the changes. So here we have to provide the environment, and yeah, this is the build. So Mebrat, so you know, right, what I have did, like, because we have updated the task and then variables also, so that I have saved the changes and then created the release now.
Okay.
So you don't have any issues here, right? The variable section
But
we
you
have.
didn't deploy it yet. Then this is
Yeah,
like just
yeah, I
preparing
have,
it
yeah,
in
I
this
have
section.
just created the release, and here,
Mm.
right, when I'm clicking on the release, so it will ask you for the deployment.
Later. Okay. Got it.
I think currently it is in the progress. I think it will basically first do the SQL Server deployment, because you see the two main tasks, right? One is the SQL DB deployment, and then the next one is like the Kubernetes deployment.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the DB deployment in progress. I think executing Azure SQL DAC pack task. I think with SQL package dot exe. Okay. I think with this one, right, Membrot. So with this utility only, they are running the deployment. SQL package dot exe. I think the SQL server itself, they are providing the package, it seems. So here they are providing publish and then the DAC pack file and the username, password, everything. So that it is we are able to deploy, it seems. Even the similar like the Redgate, right? So inside the SQL server itself, they are providing the SQL package.exe, and then we will be using the publish method, and then the source file is the myhealthclinic.dacpack, and then here we need to provide the server name and database, everything.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe whether it is able to access or not.
It shows initiating
Yeah,
deployment.
yeah. But mostly, Membrot, because this is running from the Azure DevOps, okay, but
Mhm.
maybe whether we don't know whether it will be able to access the database or not, because right, so the agent, right, it will be in the Azure DevOps, okay, okay, but our database, it is in the Azure cloud, okay, but I think mostly there won't be any restriction. So otherwise, right, it will it maybe the from the SQL, from the Azure DevOps, it cannot reach the SQL database. So that also there is some chances for the error. So we'll see. Actually, if there is any error, I think it should show. So I don't have a SSMS installed. Maybe I think they are migrating all the database and the datas also. So initialization, yeah, I think this is working abroad. Analyzing, and then the table, right? The tables also it is
Yeah.
getting index everything. I think here you can see. I think there is many schemas also maybe. Okay, I think this is table. I think DBO1 schema, and then the foreign key. So everything they are creating from the code.
Right. So the code was prepared like all this creating table and
Yeah,
for the keys
index,
and
foreign
creating
key,
the.
everything. Yeah.
Okay.
But the only one thing, Mebrat, I don't know whether they
Mm.
are exporting the database schema. I guess I don't know whether they are writing the schema for this one, or
Mm-hmm.
they are just right click on the database and then they are exporting something. Otherwise, right? Even the DAC pack,
Can you
yeah,
so can you open the code and you can check
yeah,
or not?
yeah. I think that's what we already tried, right? So, for example, uh, so the all the scripts, right? They are keeping in the DAC pack task something. Okay. So
Mm.
we have downloaded, right, and then we are not able to unpack
To
it.
see. Oh, okay.
I think they are saying something
So
we
we
have.
don't know what is
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we can say how to dot DAC pack file from SQL Server, DAC application. Simply right click on the database and choose snapshot project. It will create the snapshot. I think, Mebrad, so here, right? I think we have to create the database project in Visual Studio, and I think when we are choosing the snapshot project, I think it will create the DACPAC file. I think for this one, right? So we have to create the all the schemas in the Visual Studio.
Mhm. Can we use like any file, any code? Let's say, can you, uh, I mean, write some code
Yeah,
like a simple code,
yeah,
create a table, like trying to
yeah,
deploy that.
yeah. So here, my brother, so this one, right? How to create a DAC pack file. Okay. So maybe everything here, the XML, and then model.xml. I think here, right? I think everything they are specifying in the XML actually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe here they are naming the table. I think SQL procedure, and then maybe the procedure name, maybe body script. Use SSMS. There are how to create the DAC pack file. Okay, there are few options. You can use SSMS or the Visual Studio. I think we can go with the SSMS. Okay,
This is the
and they are
okay.
just selecting the table, right clicking the table task, and then they are choosing the extract data tier application. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this is the one. It is creating the DAC pack file, and then the DAC pack file you are checking the code in the Git repository. You got it right. So I think we are not coding anything. So maybe from your dev database, right? You can right click the table, whatever you want to export it, and then um, you have to choose the task and then the extract data tier application, and then it will save the current database table in the DAC pack, the file or something. Okay. Location the target. If you're lucky, everything goes smoothly. If not, you might encounter many
So
errors.
like, say, I don't get it here.
No,
So like, this is, I think, this is showing how to pack the any SQL Server code into the what's called doc pack
yeah,
file.
yeah.
But it's not showing us from doc pack file uh, to unzip and see the code actually.
Yeah, so I
Name
think mostly,
sequencing.
Mebret, so I think when I am just selecting there, right? So I thought like
Mm,
something we can, they have zipped and then we have to unzip it, okay? But this is something like the database creating the file. So for example, you are doing the backup or something, right? So at the
mhm,
time, maybe even the database, the table, everything, we cannot understand it. Maybe from the system language, it will be there, okay? The similar like you can just select the table, sorry, database, and then you can extract to the data tier application, okay? And then
mhm,
again the SQL server can understand it, but we cannot understand it,
mhm,
even if you are exporting it or something. Okay,
mhm,
so here
mhm,
maybe this one you can just try Mapret, but I don't know this will be working or not, because from the directly from the SQL server we are exporting, right? So for example,
mhm,
so someone needs the local setup. So what you are doing is like maybe you can provide your database backup in the .dacpack file, and then they can maybe create in their own. But I don't know, maybe this we can alter it, but it won't give the maybe the capabilities like Redgate. The Redgate one is
mhm.
maybe something different, but here this one is, so maybe from the from the backup we are importing, right? So similar like this one also, the similar like the strategy. It's not like the DB automation fully.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. So now connection details not specified. Okay. So I think the namespace, right? Maybe this is expecting the namespace, I guess. Mhm. I think we can use the default one. Uh, so I'm running it again. I think the executing the SQL, it is taking some time. So and also remember, so here you can see, right? So before taking the DAC pack file, it is not unzipping it something. It is directly taking the file, so that we don't need to unzip or something. So it's not the zipped file. So this is the
Mm.
system file, and the same file, the again the SQL server able to understand it. So that's why we are just directly providing the actual file name itself.
Correct. But what I'm trying to understand is, let's say, it's kind of scripting from the database and
No, no.
pack it as,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that pack
Okay. So for
file.
yeah. So 1 minute, remember. So for example, right? So if you are taking some backup. Okay,
Mm.
so at the time, right, so you are just creating the backup, and finally you will be having some only single file you will be getting it. Okay, but by just
Right.
extracting the file or opening in the any notepad or any database file, will you be able to see what are all the tables are there or the constraints? So those details we cannot see it, right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Mm.
so the similar like the DAC pack file also the same thing. And also, right, maybe the whenever the database is created, okay, so all the database, the data will be stored in the, I think, MDB and LDB something. So there will be the two version, right? I think one is the database and another one is for the transaction. So it will be stored in the two extension, I think the MDB and then LDB or something, but I didn't remember.
Yeah, yeah, MDB, no,
Yeah.
MDF and M.
Yeah, so I think those and all the system it can know like what is the table row details and
What,
all. Yeah, otherwise, right, if you
what
can.
I was asking, yeah, yeah, I got that. But what I'm saying is, like, this file, this is kind, let's do overall.
Yeah.
There is one project, for example. I want to create this database and create a table and create constraint, everything, right? So, so the code needs to be prepared somewhere, right, on the pipeline or
Yeah.
um, then it will be on repository, right? Then it's pulling from the repository and then trying to deploy on different servers, right? So in this case, there is file, which is uh, this DACPAC file. But in order to have that file, how do you prepare the code itself? That was
No,
my question.
no, the dot DAC pack, right? So that's what in
Mm.
that this one here they are saying something. So you have to go to the database and right click on any of the database, entire database, or otherwise you can select the particular table you want to create the DAC pack file, and you can just
Mhm.
right click on it, and you have to choose the data tier. Yeah, so here, right, like this is the
Mhm.
database, so this is the SQL server under the
Correct.
CRM database, right? You are right clicking on it and then clicking on the extract data tier application, and then it will ask you where you want to save the .dacpack file, so you can store the location. And finally,
Correct.
right, so it will be pasted in the it will be stored in the particular folder.
Location as
Yeah,
that
correct.
file.
Yeah, but and after that you can just copy the same file to your local repository, and from there you can do the commit and then push the changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, otherwise, yeah, we can. Yeah, yeah, that is the process, my brother. So for example, right,
So,
yeah, you have
yeah.
created the.
So,
Yeah.
so it's kind of, this is like, let's say you have some where already
Yeah.
master DB, or like something, your baseline,
Yeah.
that you want to have uniformity on all the environment on some DB. Then that from that DB you will create that file, and then you try to deploy to different servers, or I
Yeah.
mean database.
Yeah, so
That's
yeah. Yeah, yes.
But we can start from the beginning, like just create some
Mm,
code.
yeah.
It could be using Visual Studio. That's not the process here.
Yeah, Yeah, yes, my brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, right, I think there is some error, and we need to create some secret, I guess. Uh,
Okay. Can we have like 5 minutes?
yeah, sure, my brother. So you can take a 5 minutes break, and in the meantime, I will see what is the problem there.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Silvan, I'm here.
Yeah, okay, my brother. Yeah. So the error, right? I'm just trying to see that one, my brother. Okay. Like here we are choosing the types of secret Docker registry. Here the registry type container registry. And we have to provide the service connection and rest everything okay. And similar like in the update image here also we have to provide the subscription and then we need to click on save. Okay, so here again I will validate. Okay, under the secret Docker registry, container registry, Azure subscription, ACR, this one. Okay, and then the set. Okay, I think we'll see now. And also in the meantime, Ebrard, so we will, so I think anyway, right, the deployment, it will take 10 minutes or maybe 5 minutes something. Okay. So in the meantime, we will discuss the continuous monitoring part. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So for now, my brother, so you can maybe for from the initial our session, right? So we have seen so how to create the task and then maybe the sprint everything, right? So that is about the planning stage. Okay, how the project planning and all it is happening, the sprint, everything. Okay, and then the next one is we seen like maybe how we are going to do the maybe code to the Git repository, the branching strategy, something. So that is about the source control. Okay, and after that we have to build and deploy. So we have seen like building the .NET Core application and deploying into the maybe the app service and all we have seen right from the release pipeline. Okay, so the next one, so far now currently, right, so still we are in the deployment. So like so we are trying to deploy the AKS cluster, but you can just assuming it like it is deployed to the AKS platform. Okay, and then the next thing is like we have to monitor our application. Okay, so the monitoring our application, it is not only means like just monitoring our application, it is for the infrastructure also. Like we have the infra, so maybe in the previous project, right, we have the SQL server, AKS cluster and ACR. So here we have the three resources. Okay, and also all the three it is connected in between the virtual network. Okay, so we have to monitor the maybe the infrastructure also, and also we have to see is there any possibilities for the threat and all, maybe is there any for vulnerability, is there any chances like maybe the SQL and all, right, the SQL injection protection. So something it is there, so those things it is possible or not. And from our application point of view also, whether we are storing the policies and then we are configured the AKS clustered in the secure way, or is there any possibilities for the security breach. So those things and all it will be comes under the monitoring part. Okay, so for example you can just assuming it like web application. Okay, so maybe do you maybe I'm did you aware about the web application what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. So the first one, right? So we will be deploying our application in the one server. Okay, and from there our endpoint will be hosted. Okay. So whenever, so for example, right, this is the one. Maybe you can consider like one application, and then I am just using it. Okay. So whenever I'm reset, maybe I'm refreshing the page, or whenever I'm changing the maybe the URI path here, so it will hit to the web server. Okay, so at the time maybe like the application insight, right? So this is the one of the service in the Azure. So it will say like maybe for the particular request, so how much time it is taking to respond to that. Okay, it is basically the response time. Okay, and also the some of the things like
Okay.
yeah, and some of the things like how many requests are failed in the particular period of time, and which request it is taking more time. So those kind of analytics we can find it from the application insights. Okay, so
So web application, it's the same as like app application or any kind of
no, the
application
web
that.
application, no, web application means whatever the application it is hosting the endpoint in the HTTP, and then we are consuming in the browser or any HTTP client tool.
Any
Okay,
website.
yeah, so for example, right, maybe the you cannot say like maybe the Windows application, right? The Windows
No.
application, those things and all, we cannot say like that is the web application. So if it is the
Right.
web application means it has to expose the endpoint in the HTTP protocol.
Right.
Okay, and those things, right? So for example, if you are using the application insights, you can find the insight about the web application, like how many requests you received, and which particular URI it is taking more time, and how many failed, and also, right, maybe you can understand the CPU and memory usage of the particular web application. Okay, so those all will be comes under the application insight. Okay, so even right, so basically, so what will be the parameters we have to monitor in the web application? Okay, like how many requests we received, and which request it is taking more time, and how many requests it is failed, and if it is failed, why it is failed. So those kind of details only we will be monitoring it, right, to analyze the performance of the web application. Right, my bro?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So and then the infrastructure. So infrastructure means, right. So for example, I have created the AKS cluster. So maybe after 1 week, right. So there is some problem. So you need to know who has created the AKS cluster, or after creation of the AKS cluster, is anyone modified or not. So those kind of things and all, right, it will be comes under the activity logs. So that also it is very important, right? If someone taking the maybe the access it's a wrong way, and then someone has deleted something. Okay, in those scenario you need to know, right, who has done the particular operation. Okay, maybe updating the cluster or deleting the cluster or something. So those and all it comes under the activity logs. Okay, so you can just take an example of the AKS cluster or ACR. We are just created, right? So that somewhere it will be logged as the it is created by you. So that is the activity log. Okay, and then the diagnostic log means for example we have deployed the images and all, right? So we know like the Kubernetes, it has to pull the image, and then it has to deploy it inside the node. So it has to start up if there is some possibility of the deployment failure, and also maybe the certificate invalidation. So there are many things, right? It is within the Kubernetes class cluster. Okay, so those things and all it will be logged under the diagnostic logs. Okay, but I will show you maybe how to enable the activity logs and diagnostics logs. But by default, right, it won't be captured. Okay, so if you want it, you have to capture it, and then you have to provide the retention period also. So for example, how long you have to keep the particular logs actually. So you got it right, my bro. So you can just understand it, but yeah, later I will show you. Okay, and then the log analytics. So there is something called workspace here, and inside that we can push the activity logs and diagnostic logs to the log analytics workspace. Okay, and once the all the data, the logs, metrics, everything is getting into the log analytics workspace, and from there, yeah, we can query the database like similar like the SQL database, right? We can query it, and then we can understand the what is the logic inside the maybe what it is happen in the particular cluster or something. So those details we can understand it. Okay, and then the NSG flow logs. So this is for the maybe monitoring the network log. So for example, right? So from the ACR to AKS. So there is some traffic it has to happen, and then from the AKS to SQL servers. So there is some traffic it will be happen, right? So then only the AKS it will fetch the data from the SQL server. Okay, so those things and all the mostly, right, the network traffic we can be monitored using the NSG flow logs. Okay, and then the monitor, the Azure monitor, it is the one-stop solution for all the capabilities like the NSG flow logs, log analytics, right? It is everything, it will be comes under the monitor. So the monitor it will collect the data, and then it is analyze the data, and then we can visualize it using the dashboard, and then we can take some action so for example, right, if maybe multiple failures in the particular period of time, yeah, we can send a mail or we can alert it. So those kind of capabilities it will provide, the Azure monitor it will provide. Okay, and then the next one is the threat protection. Okay, so this one, right, so the Microsoft itself it will provide the one of the subscription called so one of the service called Azure Cloud Defender. Okay, so for example, I have created the AKS cluster, and then the SQL Server database also. Okay, I can enable the Cloud Defender also. Okay, for the particular resources. So what Microsoft they will do is like they will provide the security recommendations. Okay, so for example, you have to encrypt the data at rest so that you can avoid the particular security breach. So those kind of service recommendation they will provide from the Azure Cloud Defender. Okay, even if you are not created the cluster securely, the Azure Cloud Defender, if you are enabling the particular service, the Azure Cloud Defender they will recommend some security best practices. Okay, and then the resource compliance and non-compliance. Okay, so for example, the policies. So for example, I can create some policies, and then I can assign the policies at the resource group or subscription level. So for example, the one policy, right, I can say like maybe the SQL Server database, right? So the MDB and LDB somewhere it will store. Okay, wherever it is stored it has to be encrypted. So that is the one policy. Okay, I can assign it to the resource group level, and maybe from the any security person is coming, right, at the time it will show like this SQL Server is not compliant to our organization policies because it is not encrypted at the rest. So these and all it will be comes under the policies, and then the security center you can see like what are all the resources it is in the non-compliant status. So those things you can see it. So you can you have some overview about these all the things, right, my bro? Like what it is doing the threat detection, it is basically like the security recommendations. Okay, you will be enabling the Cloud Defender, the service for the particular resource, so that it will provide the security recommendation based on our current state in our application. If there is any best practices to be improved, so then they will be providing some recommendations, and based on that we can do the certain changes. So sometimes it will incur some charges also. For example, right, they may be providing the suggestions like we have to encrypt the data disk. Okay, but this is, we know like this is the important feature, but the one thing is like when we are doing the encryption, so it will incur some cost also. So at the time we have to compare whether we need the particular security recommendation and then the cost for that one. We can compare both, and whatever it is needed we can do that. Okay, my brother, so you understood, right? And then the complaints, it is the same thing. My brother, you are clear, right?
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah. So the next one, right, the Azure monitor. So for example where it is collecting the data, like the application, like web application or .NET, even the on-premise also, you can collect uh, the data, the logs and metrics, right? You can collect the data. And then operating system means the from VMware, right? Sorry, from virtual machine. And the Azure resources means like uh, maybe the AKs, the Kubernetes, the one of the resource, SQL Server is the one of the resource and all. And subscription means maybe whoever doing what is the maybe you are creating the resource and then you are deleting the resource. So those kind of subscription. And the tenant level, from the directory, right? So from the directory level, what are all the modifications someone doing? So all the details, the logs and metrics. Okay, so from all the sources you are collected as the logs and uh, metrics. Okay, and with the Azure monitor, right, it will hold all the metrics and logs. And then with that one, so you can visualize it using any one of the, so you can find the insights. Okay, so for example application container health and VM health. So those things you can find the insights. And also you can visualize it like using some dashboard or something, you can visualize it. And then you can analyze the thing like so there they are providing some query model also similar like SQL Server. So you can query it there. Okay, and also we can create some alert also. Maybe if the particular scenario is happened, maybe if the VM is reached the CPU resource limit like above 80 percentage, it has to send the alert to some IT team or the some infra team. Okay, so those alert are the auto scaling also. If it want to create some auto scaling, so at the time we can provide here. And also it can be integrated with some other tool also like Event Hub, Logic App. So these are all the another service from the Azure. So maybe, right, so once the particular event is triggered, so you can push the message to the Event Hub. Maybe some other your maybe custom application, right? So some of them they will be listening to the Event Hub, and then they will do this corresponding the business logic. Okay, so from the Azure monitor they will collect the logs and metrics from all the below resources. And then with that Azure monitor, these are all the capabilities we can achieve it. Okay, so for this one, right, the demo what we can see like the application inside. So we can see the application inside, so what it is doing. Okay, so maybe you are okay with the Azure monitor, right? Maybe we will see the demo in the next slide. Yeah,
Right.
maybe. Okay, so in the meantime we will see whether it is deployed or not. Okay, so earlier, right, so the AKS cluster, so currently it is deployed, Mebrat. Okay, so I will go to so Mebrat, so you understood, right? The earlier we started the deployment and after that only we moved to the monitoring. So currently this one is deployed. So I'm going to AKS cluster. Okay, like this is our resource group. And under that we want to go to Kubernetes service. And then here you want to go to the namespace. And under this namespace only we are having all the, yeah, we have created all the containers, everything. um, yeah, so here, right, so the front end and then the back end, right? So all the things and all deployed, but I don't know why it is showing in the warning mode. Okay, but basically so these are all, so the for the Kubernetes itself, so some the kube system namespace, right? So those and all needed for running the Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So inside the default namespace only we have deployed our application. So I will just try to access the endpoint. So this is the endpoint, right? So this is the endpoint of our application. Okay. Um, so we can see whether we are able to access the application or not. This is taking some time. I think mostly it's not working. Maybe do we need to increase the cluster IP? This is the front end, so that's why the load balancer. Okay, instead of 831291, I think we have the three node, and also every node in the health state only, and on 28 GB. I think this one is not ready, my brother. So that is the problem. Zero available, one unavailable. I think this one is crashed. Crash loop back off. when you create or you might occasionally come across this problem. Okay, in general, where do we find? Okay, I'm getting what to do. Okay, and the subnet is less than. Okay, okay, my brother. Yeah, I think mostly the problem would be right. My pod is okay. CTL. I think this is the problem we are getting. I think we don't have enough resource. I think that is the problem. Nice. Restart. I think this try to restart 8 times. I think here, my brother, so we can see the log actually. So I think either you can use the kubectl logs command, or otherwise you can come to the live logs. So here also, right, whatever it is generating the command so that you can see it here. I think the backend is deployed correctly, but only the public IP it's showing some problem, or maybe do we don't have a public IP for this one. Here the services is healthy. So Membrant, so what I'm thinking the mostly the issue would be, right, so for example currently I'm having the app services and then the Kubernetes cluster also. Okay. So maybe what we can do, right? So first I will go through the application insights, and after that we can delete the application so that at the time we will be having only one public IP, so that we can maybe there is some chances to work actually. Okay. So currently here, right? So here also one application, and it will have the public IP, and same thing here also the from the Kubernetes also. So sometimes when you are using the free tier or the Azure pass subscription, right? So that will have some limitation, like within your subscription you can use only the limited public IPs only. You cannot have the multiple IPs. So basically, okay. So for that reason, we can just I will just to show you how to configure the application insights, and after that we can delete the application. Maybe the tomorrow we will see the AKS also, but anyway we have the application, working application, right? So we can see that in tomorrow also. Okay,
Sure.
my
All
friend?
right.
Yeah. So for example, right, this is our launch darkly application. So I'm going to here the app service, and so here you can see the public URL to access this one. Okay, so this one I already deployed. So this one I just taken just for showing the application insights demo.
Mhm.
So currently it is loading. I think here also it is taking long time. Yeah, I think it is coming. Okay. So for example, we got the application, right? So if I want to configure the application insights, so in the left side, right? So we can see under the settings, right? We can have the application insights. Okay. And so by default, right, it will be disabled. So if you want to enable or disable, so here you can just choose it. Okay. So currently, right, it's already enabled because I tried to enable last time. Okay. And then what you have to do is like you have to choose the log analytics workspace name also. Okay. If it is nothing there, it will just create the log analytics workspace by default. Okay. So similar like, right, so similar like the resource group, if the resource group is not there, it will create the resource group, right? So since I'm not having any log analytics workspace, it is creating. Okay. So I'm just coming into this application insights. I just enabled it, and I have to, so I want to provide, right, where it needs to save the all the logs and metrics relate the perf related things. Okay. So here we are choosing the log analytics workspace. Okay, the resource name, and so we have created, and then finally I'm just clicking on apply. And also, right, so for example, this is the case for the web application, but if you want to do for the virtual machine, right, at the time so there so some of the agent we have to install it. Okay. So if it is, since it is the platform as a service, we are just enabling application insights here itself. But if you want to monitor your VM or some other thing, so at the time you have to enable the the log analytics, you have to install the log analytics agent. Okay, so this is something the straightforward only, Mebrat. Okay, maybe uh, so maybe we can just enable it, and maybe for every type of resources, right, it will be vary. So the how we can enable the monitoring, so it will be vary. So for example, the database, it could be something different, and then the even for the VM, so virtual machine, everything, it will be different. Okay, so here your app is connected to the log analytics insights resource. Okay, so for example, now I'm just viewing application insights data. So here you can see like so this will show like so what is the failed request and server response time and server request and availability. So all those things, it will basically, it will provide in this manner, so that it will be very easy to track how our application is performing something. Okay, so for example, I'm hitting multiple times. Okay, but it will take maybe some times to refresh the data here. But yeah, we can see it like how many requests and so something here we can see it here. Okay, I think it will take maybe 5 to 10 minutes for showing here. So and this is for the application inside, and one more thing is like I have said, right, the activity log. The activity log means like maybe when you're who is creating the resource and who is deleted. So those things and all, maybe we can configure it like inside the diagnostic settings. When you're going there, and then here you can select like add diagnostic settings, and then here you can choose what are all the logs you have to capture it. Okay, so for example, administrative related tasks, security, service, health, so these are all the entities. The for the Azure pass, it is the Azure app services, it is there, and I am choosing the logs categories. Okay, and then here also the destination, I can choose it, whether I have to send the data to log analytics workspace, because the last time we have created one, right, whether we can select it there. Okay, so this is already we have created, so whether I can send it there, or otherwise, right, I can send the logs to the storage account also. Okay, so it will be stored in the raw file, like the CSV or txt file, it will be stored, so that maybe you can look the file when you are going to the blob storage. Yeah, you can see that one. So you got it, my bro. And then the event hub also, you can publish the logs to there. And then the partner solution, maybe if you have some custom solution, yeah, I think you can select here, but this one I don't aware. But this is one, the log analytics workspace, so that account we just created, right? So there you can select it, so all the data will be gone there. Or otherwise, if you want, you can push it to the storage account also. So maybe the blob, right? So here, right, so this is the storage account, and inside that it will create some folder like so today is the year is 2021, and under that month is December, and under that the date is 6 and maybe for every hour, right, it will create a one folder, and inside that it will have some file actually. So for example, right, maybe I'm just choosing this one, so send to log analytics workspace. Okay, I don't know why we don't. Okay, I think here we need to provide some name. Okay, so here I have selected all the logs categories, and I am selected the destination also. So here I am click on save. Okay, so this one maybe from now onwards it will send the data to the log analytics workspace. Okay, so now, right, so this one is the central US. I will. So, Mebrat, you are here. You are clear, right? I'm coming into the web app, and under that, I'm clicking on the activity log, and then coming into the diagnostic settings. And under the diagnostic settings, these are all the following categories. maybe based on your need you can select it. So sometimes, right, you don't need the service health information or the administrative information. Okay, so based on your need you can select the particular category, and then the destination also where you want to send it, either maybe the log analytics workspace or the storage account or the event hub. So this is you will be sending us the message. Okay, so for currently we have saved into the log analytics workspace. Okay, uh, okay, so the next one is like maybe we want to go to the log analytics. We will see whether the log analytics is there or not. Okay, I'm just searching a log analytics workspace, and I'm going in the central US. Okay, so here you can go to the logs. Okay, and then here you can see the data. Maybe from here you can query the data also. So for example, the following, so these many queries, yeah, basically you can run it here, like maybe the audit or the replication. So these many, the queries are there, right? So otherwise, maybe we can construct our own queries also. So here I'm just selecting our log analytics workspace, like the central US. You may only choose resource type. Okay. Yeah, I think it is taking some time for reflection. Okay, but here you can maybe here you have some default query, right? So when you are double clicking on it, so here you can see the query. Okay, like this is taking from the function app logs, and where the time generated, so so the last 1 hour. Okay, and then the level is like warning or error or information, so those things you can specify it. So when you're clicking on it, so you will be getting some information here. So based on your the log database you will be getting here. Okay, so this is what team, so like so in that here, right, so we have seen how to enable the application insights, and after that so how to move the diagnostic logs and then the activity logs to the log analytics workspace. And so this is how you have to maybe how to query it here. Okay, and then maybe some of the advanced level here you can say like the metrics also here we can see. uh, so I think here it is not there. So with the metrics, right, so we can create the dashboard, and so whatever the queries we are having, right, so for example this one is like rendering the column chart. Okay, so now I'm executing the query. So I think for this table, right, the function app log, so there is no data associated with that. So for example, if you are having any Azure functions, and also if you are enabling some enabling the diagnostic settings logs to the function app, so you will be having the data. And then so with the above details, right, so finally it will be rendered into the column chart. Okay, so the same thing you can be mentioned, maybe you can show it in the chart, the visualized manner, so that will be easy to understand basically. Okay, and yeah, maybe here they have the some default query, right? So for example this is something AEW compute pipeline logs to get all daily task count. And so there are many queries maybe you can explore. And yeah, for each and everything, right, the Azure resource containers level desktop, so they are having many things. So they are having some default query, so this also it will work as like SQL, but the syntax everything it's same, it's a different only. Okay. And yeah, and yeah, maybe if you want to do some customization, so for example here it is the event name, you can change it to other things also. Okay. So okay team, so this is about the maybe the monitoring demo. Like mostly, right, we will be using the application insights. There you can see the number of the failed requests, the server response time, so those kind of capabilities. And then the here also you can query the data, actual the all the metric data. So you can maybe yeah, you can maybe retrieve here. And also, right, maybe you can set it up some the log retention also. Okay, maybe the tomorrow, right, so we will see I think why the Kubernetes cluster is not running. So I will see that one. So I will once again, I'm going to the Azure resource. Yeah, I think the front end app, right, I think this one is not in starting mode. So this one I will show, maybe there is any problem or not, I will see. And then we will see the another, the how to send the feedback to the chat medium. So that one we can see maybe tomorrow session. Okay. So okay team, yeah, thank you everyone, bye, good night.